Dondrea Brown. Count the cost. Let's go.
Hey y'all, this is Dondrea Brown back at the Count the Cost podcast. I'm so excited because we done brought in a special guest. I think this is beyond timely, thinking about all the things that we've been, just going through in society. But I want to introduce Miss Rebecca Spann to the podcast. Say hello, Rebecca.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So, you know how we do it on the podcast. We jump straight in. But before we do, make sure you follow us. You make comments because we want to keep this as a engaging and interactive podcast because, we come real raw and transparent. So we just going to jump right in. Rebecca, is that okay with you?
Let's go.
The Count the Cost podcast is sponsored by Young Money Finance. That's a local nonprofit in Grand Rapids, Michigan, providing youth financial literacy. If you're interested in learning more about them, go to www.ymfgr.org. Again, www.ymfgr.org.
I'm Rebecca Spann. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I'm also the founder and executive director of our mental health collective. And so as it pertains to impact, the impact that I have on the community is ensuring that communities of color have access to mental health care. And so we have a directory, OURMHC.org. And I also am a private practice clinician, and I have been in my own practice for 7 years now. I've been a clinician for over 12 years. And so when it comes to impact, the way that I like to look at it is that if I can say something, if I can make a connection for somebody, if I can ensure that people have information or resources, that's all the impact that I feel in a lot of spaces is necessary. So just making sure people have connections to what they need.
So thank you. What we will do also is make sure that your information is listed because that's going to be beyond important for people to connect with. Because as I know, this and, going to your profession, like mental health, especially in the Black community, has been, taboo. I remember growing up, there were signs that, signs of mental health in different people, but we described it as, some of those terms that, I regret to say, whether it was like, oh, you're retarded or you're slow. Because again, growing up, we didn't really have a sensitivity or a knowledge or empathy to people struggling with mental health. But jumping more into that topic, like for me, I hear like counselor and mental health. Can you let us know, like, is there a difference in those two? Are they the same? Yeah, drop some knowledge.
So counselors and therapists, so there can be some differences. A licensed professional counselor is the professional term, and that is a person who went to school for counseling. And so oftentimes you may hear them use the word counselor. But then therapists can be interchangeably used between all disciplines of mental health providers. So that could be a social worker, that can be a psychologist. More than likely, those psychologists are going to say they're a psychologist. They want the respect on their name, rightfully so.
Right.
They went to school, they got educated a little bit longer, did a little bit more work than some of the other professions who just came out of school. And not just, but we all have worked hard. But psychologists, psychiatrists, they are all doctors. So they went a little bit extra as far as education. But as it pertains to counselor, you can hear that term used interchangeably between behavioral health providers. And then that's another term, behavioral health provider.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you're licensed. That just means somebody that works with the community in regards to behavioral health. So mental health therapist, counselor, behavioral health professional, mental health professional, all of these terms are interchangeably used, but it typically points back to being able to work with the community around mental health.
So if you could, like, let's peel back a couple layers. What got you into this profession?
Curiosity. I was just always very curious around people's behaviors, why they showed up in the world the way that they do. I've, studied certain people throughout history, and I'm like, why would someone do that or say that or, treat a group of people that way? And so it was always very intriguing to me. It was also very intriguing, too, because I never saw, well, not never, but I will say, like, going through school and learning more about mental health, I didn't see a lot of Black women or men who were in the space. Now we have like the highest number in this space than we've ever had throughout history. But I always thought it was interesting that this was a field where so many people, specifically Black and brown people, needed to know about this topic, but you didn't see a lot of us.
Facts. Did you always want to pursue this type of career, or were you kind of like me, where I wanted to be a lawyer, I wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be so many things? Like, tell us about that.
I had a couple of professions in mind. So one, I wanted to work for the CIA.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
did. Yeah.
Why is that? Why the CIA?
Again, curiosity.
Okay.
And then I'm intrigued by like the secrecy of the work they do, and
Yeah.
But then when I learned more about some of the work that they do, I was like, oh, maybe that's not the lane that I would like to go in. I think
Right.
it's a wonderful profession for those who are in it, but not for me. So, and then I was interested in being a nurse, a pilot, just all of these different.
Hold on. You said a pilot.
Yes.
Tell us about that. A pilot. Okay.
So my father was in the military, and he was excited. And I told my mom that I wanted to go to the Air Force because I wanted to become a pilot, and she was like, "No, absolutely not."
Shut it down.
So that didn't go far at all. So when it came to being a therapist, originally I did want to become a psychologist, but when I started doing some deeper work around what I really wanted to do, I landed on being a licensed professional counselor, and I told myself if I wanted to get more education, that I would go back. So
Right. Yeah, that's similar to like me, because again, I wanted to be a police officer, then a lawyer, mainly because I used to watch Law and Order.
okay.
And then when I wanted to be a police officer, because I watch cops, I'm like, I can catch them. Like, I just used to see them running, and they would get away. I'm like, no, I could catch him. So then I started studying law a little bit. I never forget it. One day I called my mom, like, I want to be a police officer. She was like, don't be a police officer because you're going to die. And it hit me. I'm like, first of all, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll be a lawyer. And then as I started learning more about law, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a prosecuting attorney. I was kind of lost in some of these things. I'm like, I don't want to defend somebody if I know they're guilty, but I don't want to, force somebody into jail and try to plead. I said, nah, I'm getting out of this. I did have a great opportunity to go to Ghana in 2007. Spent about a month and a half teaching at an all-girls high school. Taught Spanish, art, and all these other things. And my professor looked at me one day and he was like, you'll make a great teacher. I'm like, nah, you tripping. I don't want to be no teacher. And then on that plane ride back, 14 hours, it was a 14-hour plane ride, I was just reflecting on all the moments in my life where I'm like, I just naturally would teach people and have fun doing it. And then I never forget that phone call to my dad where I was like, I want to be a teacher.
So I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What brought you to Ghana?
So I went to a school called Kenyon College, and they had a program called the Arts of Ghana.
Oh, okay.
And that program, you learned about the culture, and then you identified 2 different subjects you wanted to teach. And then you would pay for an opportunity to go to Ghana for a month and a half and actually practice what you prepared.
That's amazing.
The other great part about it was all paid for and covered. Wow. I had a wonderful professor. Thank you, Peter Rutkoff. He paid for everything because he had a partnership with Ohio State. His wife was a professor at Ohio State, so they came together, paid for everything. So you had a kid and myself, low income, first generation, could not pay for it, couldn't afford it, and never thought about going to Ghana. Landing myself in a position where that was like the turning point for like, this is what I truly want to do, which was super dope. But continuously getting into the world of mental health, how do you I'm sure you're, sitting in your office or sitting in a space where you're taking in all this information that people are giving and also supporting them. But how do you unwind, and how do you handle the weight of all of that?
That's an excellent question. One, I have done a lot of work to change my schedule. So when I first started out, I was seeing clients 5 days a week, and I was seeing maybe 6 to 8 clients a day.
Ooh.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
And I think every therapist gets to that place where they recognize, like, ooh, this is too much for me.
Facts.
And so I had to do a lot of work around what was my threshold and what I could handle and what I could not.
Yeah.
And so every year I put in a 5-year strategic plan to cut off a day.
Okay.
And so every year I took a day off. So I went down to 4 days a week. I went down to 3 days a week. I went down to 2 days a week. And now, as I'm continuously building the organization, I only see clients 1 day a week.
Right.
That has made a tremendous change in the way that I feel overall.
Right.
I love the work that I do. Don't get me wrong. I love holding space for people, but it is real that we do
Yeah.
endure secondary trauma when you're, listening to other people's challenges.
Right.
And again, it's a conversation that in a lot of spaces we have to start having more conversations around. I mean,
Right.
we talk about soldiers and the things that they see and how they're impacted.
Right.
Police officers, same way.
Mm.
Surgeons, ER
Yeah.
doctors, nurses. So we all have a really high threshold of stress and
Yeah.
things that we are impacted by. And so with that, some of the other practical things that I do is I walk. I love being outside, like absolutely love it. I take a lot of time just to myself.
Right.
I've had a lot of conversations with my children around what I need. And they
Mm.
also, in turn, have learned how to communicate with me what they need to.
That's real.
So that's really important to be able to have conversations with your family. But then again, just doing nothing. Like, that is my thing, doing
Hey,
nothing.
that's real.
It has no definition, it has no purpose. It's just existing, but without anything required of me, and
Yeah.
it does not require my brain to work. So that's
Mm.
what's been really, really special to me, is preserving the brain space that I have.
So you said so much where my mind is like flicker with all these questions, but one thing that I want to ask now is like, how do you cut your brain off? Because for me, I just be like, cut off, but it's so hard to like cut it off. How do you do that?
So it takes a lot of practice,
Okay.
and it's possible. I do want to say that. Oftentimes people say the same thing, like my mind is constantly moving. Well,
Ooh.
our minds are amazing. So I tell people, first of all,
Okay.
study your brain,
Mm.
understand what you need. Because
Okay.
oftentimes we're running on autopilot. And if we don't ever take the intentional time and moment to stop and say, wait, what is happening right now? What do you need? What are you working on? Why are you working so hard? Then you'll stay on that hamster wheel, if you will,
Yeah.
of just
Yeah.
continuously working. So pulling back and taking some time to
Yeah.
get quiet, to get a journal, to write some things out, and really starting to pay attention to why you do what you do and why your brain is working the way that it does.
Right.
I tell people often, if I don't have something to work on, if I'm not intentionally managing
Yeah.
my brain, I'll find something to work on.
That's
I'll
real.
say, oh, wow, look at that light. I wonder if
Yep.
there's a new light I can go get. Let me go to Home Depot. Wait a minute. Let me look up something on YouTube and see what I can find out about this light. And then
Yeah.
I have a whole new project. And it's like, I wasn't doing anything. Why?
And I feel like that is like beyond real, especially now because we live in a overly stimulated world where it feels like if we're not doing nothing, we're not productive.
And that's a problem too. We were never created to be productive. That's all related to capitalism, making money and being robots, and
Yeah.
that's not okay for a human being to
Right.
be so programmed to just be
Just go.
productive.
Yeah.
So, again, that's where we have a lot of like disconnect, because as human beings, we want to feel, we want to experience life, but then we have this expectation to be productive or to always move or have this going or have that
Secure that
going.
bag. Keep your
Yeah,
status up.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh.
That's a lot. I think it's a way to do that. Not even I think. I know there's a way to do it, but again, it takes some very intentional conversations with
Yeah.
yourself to know what works for you.
Who so she's dropping knowledge, so y'all better pick up a pen, a pencil, grab like your phone or something. Start to record some of these things because like this podcast isn't only used for people to share their knowledge, but it's you to, do something with this information being dropped. So you started talking about, how do you unwind and manage things in different professions that, take on and potentially take on secondary trauma, which again, that was like a new term for me. So I'm already thinking about that. I think about our nonprofit leaders too, especially as we're serving community. I think about when we're serving young people, right? And they're coming in and you kind of observe, or they may drop some knowledge on you or, some experiences, and you kind of like, whoa, how do you take those things on? If you could speak into some of our leaders that serve community members that, position themselves to take in some of this, but, secondary trauma, like, can you give them some tips or some things that they can do?
First and foremost, take care of yourself. And that sounds so cliche, but even being a part of community, it requires us to. I'm not going to say be completely whole, because I don't know if that's a real thing. The human experience is something where we're continuously learning and growing.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you are not taking the time to dedicate to figure out who you are, how to get rest, how to eat, how to spend your time, um, and how to relax, then it's difficult for you to pour into other people. And again,
Ooh.
you'll go back to that cycle of productivity, got to do this, got to do that, got to do that. And a lot of times what I've noticed is that it's very opposite from what people's mission is. So it's almost like you become a hypocrite to what you're preaching and what you're saying. And I can honestly speak
That's
to this.
good.
I got a
That's
whole
good.
team who can attest to this. Like, we have some built-in processes where I'm like, no, you taking care of yourself. Or
Facts.
we're taking time off. Like the month of December, we ain't working.
Mm.
Like, at all. Summertime, yeah, let's take some breaks.
Yeah.
End of the month, we have a no meet week. Meaning we not having no meetings. There's some
No
things
meat week. I love that.
there's some things
Okay.
that can happen, but we have other ways of communication.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, it's just very practical things where it's like, take care of yourself, take care
Yeah.
of your team. Not texting after certain hours or etc. unless it's like something that's urgent or
Yeah.
has to happen. And again, this is something I had to learn. And
Right.
then as
Right.
I learned it, I was able to share it with the team that
The
I've been
team.
working with. So again, as leaders, we got to be mindful that if we're not taking care of ourselves, that is going to spill over into our team. And to be very transparent, I just had a conversation, a meeting with my team 2 weeks ago when we had a meeting, because it's no meet week. But in that meeting, I apologized to them. I said, because last year I realized that I was under a significant amount of stress.
Right.
And I said, you know what? And even during that time, we were always in communication and talking, and they knew, and they held me down, and I really appreciate them. But I also apologize, because I'm like, it took me a while to get out of that space, and now that I'm
Right.
out of it and I was reflective, I had to apologize and tell them, like, I'm sorry
Right.
for my anxieties spilling over into you all's work.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
that was just an honest conversation. So again, accountability is important for us too. We're not going to always be perfect.
That's
That
facts. Yeah.
shouldn't
That's
be what we strive to be, because
okay.
perfection is hard and almost impossible. But at the same time, if we're transparent, if we're
Yeah.
honest, if we're having hard conversations, I believe that leaders can really be in a healthy space. So
I love that, because I think if I had to define like a couple buzzwords, themes, etc., that has been, going through just my mind, different groups, community, etc., leadership, mental health, accountability. Like, I've been hearing a lot about those different terms. Literally yesterday I was at Dr. Shack's presentation, and he was just talking about building culture. And whether you can define it or not, a culture is already created in the workspace. So you then have to do the work to define it, figure out if you want to redefine it, all those things. Shout out to Dr. Shack.
that's good.
Yeah, he was dropping knowledge, and I was asking questions about accountability. So for you, like, what does accountability look like for you? What does that look like?
As a leader,
Yep, as a leader.
being honest, being transparent. We had to make quite a bit of pivots and changes, especially last year, because we were testing a lot.
Yeah.
Even now, as an organization, we're testing a lot. We are literally in a testing phase for a couple projects, meaning there's not much that we can speak to publicly, but there's a lot that we're figuring out. And so there are times as a leader where I'm like, y'all, that ain't work. Or we got to go back to the drawing board, because this ain't
That's
right.
real. Yeah.
And so having that conversation with your team, with yourself, being honest, but then also thinking through a wisdom lens of, where do I get help? Don't try to take it all on your own.
That's
Like,
good.
I
Yeah.
have a really good, solid team of people that I can tap into when
Yeah.
I'm, hitting a wall, and they're like, come on, let's figure this out. So that's another piece of accountability, is being able to say what your capacity is and what it isn't.
Right,
And
right,
if
right.
you know where you stop, find somebody else who can help you carry that thing out. And yeah, as leaders, sometimes you may want to get the glory to say you did all of it. That's not the
It's not.
purpose.
Yeah.
Your mission is what should be driving you, not, the person. The person will drive the mission, right?
Right. Right.
But
Right.
sometimes
Yeah.
people get so caught up in the glitz and the glam, and I did this and I did
Yeah.
that, that the mission is
It's,
secondary, and that doesn't serve anybody. So yeah, accountability comes with knowing what your capacity is.
yeah. So Dr. Shack said, you don't go as far as your dream. You go as far as your team.
That's real.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my goodness. So that's another thing. Like for us, we're really trying to do some work to build a better culture, be more intentional about what the mission is, how do we achieve the mission, but also how do we, serve the individuals that is, trying to address and live out the mission.
Right.
Because I think sometimes that gets lost in, like you
can.
said, and we talked about productive day to day. It's like, okay, making sure we take care of ourselves. Going back to our people, because again, and I'm only talking about me personally because I've learned so much about mental health, like even trying to support my kids, my little ones. My oldest daughter had moved with me a couple years ago, and just living with her and her advocating for herself, and then my other kids, I'm learning more about just being in tune with how to support them, even from a mental health lens, because I even think the generations are becoming more aware of themselves and how they can be supported. What are some like things that we can do as I'll say parents to support our kids in the broad space of mental health?
Talking about feelings.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not perfect, but as a mother, I have learned the importance of, from a very young age, not my young age, but my children's young age, teaching them to put a name to what they're experiencing. And sometimes they may not have a name, and that's okay too.
Right.
But, in order for them to communicate what's going on, it's important that we give them that vocabulary.
Right.
And again, making space for not knowing too. It's okay to say, I don't know what I'm feeling. My youngest told me the other night, I don't know. And she was just crying and screaming. I said, okay, wait, hold on. Now, even in that, I'm not going to try to, police the way that you're experiencing your emotions right now.
Right.
But there are some other things, like your sister's right here. She's trying to get some rest.
Yeah.
The rest of the
Yeah.
household is, I said, so, if you want to have a different space to do this in, I can offer that. But we got to think about, how you're expressing and what's happening. So after I had that conversation with her, she calmed down just a little bit, and then she took a couple breaths and whatever, she had to do to get herself together. And then she was just like, I don't know what I feel.
Yeah.
And I said, I can do something with that. And I was just able to be there with her and to be present with her. I don't know what she needed specifically, but just being there was enough. So giving them the opportunity to name what they're feeling, but to also give them the option to say, I don't know what I'm feeling. Because as adults, we go through that too. So talking about it to the best of your ability, having conversations around feelings and what they're experiencing, and then normalizing that it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to have strong emotions. It's okay to be happy, to be sad, to be disappointed, confused, etc. It's okay.
Yeah, because things that I'm always trying to wonder and figure out is like, how much control do we have in this mental health space over our own emotions, what we're thinking about versus like external factors? Because for me, I don't think I wouldn't say always, but there are many times where I'm like, Dondrea, you got to get a grip. Like you have to take control. You have to manage. But it sounds like there are things that are just outside of our control, and sometimes that has to be okay. And I can say, like, I definitely struggle with that, especially with my kids. I got a daughter, Rebecca, that her favorite word is I don't know. And I'll be like, I feel like you can fill that in. But I do have to, I am trying to be more patient with her, but I just be like, I guess I came from a culture where I don't know, that wasn't good enough.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, so how are you feeling? I don't know. I'm like, I feel like you should be feeling something. But so I think that's really good that you are sharing that experience and being transparent. I thank you for that, because like, okay, I'm be a little patient with my kids, because I think that's another thing too. Like for me personally, I'm like, I want my kids to, do better, be better. I think each generation wants that, and trying to figure out what that looks like. But coming back to us as adults, like now what can we do to prepare ourselves to support our kids? Because that's a whole nother thing.
I just had this conversation the other day, and it was so rich. One, think about narrative of parenthood and how parents should look. We all have this idea of how we should be or what kind of parent we should show up as, right?
Yep.
But then when you compare that to who you are, it may not be the same person. So again, there's a major disconnect, and you're pushing yourself to be this over here of this is what a parent should be, and then this is who you really are. And honestly, they may not ever be compatible.
Right. No,
So,
you're
but with that, so I invite people to be themselves.
right. Yeah.
And then, the parts that you need assistance with, whatever that may look like. And if you are striving to be this parent that you have not seen or that you want to be, then ask for help to get there or call on some people that you've seen demonstrate that. But to keep that as an internal goal and to not have the support to get there or you've never seen it, what happens on accident is that we end up being the same parents we don't sometimes want to be.
Right.
Sometimes we don't make it to that level of parenthood, whatever that may be. And then a lot of times it can be us constantly fighting within ourselves because we're like, oh, I'm not who I should be as a parent.
Right.
And so, again, being real with who you are and saying, this is the type of parent I am. Again, I gave an example of, knowing what I need as an individual. Yeah. And so it's not talked about enough, but the overstimulation of parents is huge. And so if I need a break, I'm telling my kids, listen, unless a tornado is ripping through the house, there is some very serious things happening. I need a moment to myself.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You are sufficient enough to take care of what you need.
Facts.
I need this. When they hurt my feelings, I'm letting them know. Because again, we sometimes have this narrative that parents are supposed to take all these internal or even external punches and whatever happens with our kids, we experience some things. And so I'm starting to name that more and more. That real. Disappointed me. No, that hurt my feelings. Wow. I did X, Y, and Z for you. And I asked you to pick up your shoes and you have a whole, like, that's not okay.
Hey, that's facts.
Like, I'm trying to understand that. And so having those conversations with them and not trying to hide that, but then also letting them know your shortcomings too.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're not a leader. That doesn't mean that you don't have authority, whatever that looks like in your household. But it means that you're a human being and you're teaching them how to be human beings as well. I mean, adults and have functional relationships and communication.
Yeah.
So be yourself and be honest with your kids. Don't try to hide your emotions from them. Right. Now, there are some boundaries that you may want to create around how much you show them, what you show them, what type of conversations you're having, who you're talking about around them. I'm not saying to not think about those things, but I'm saying, include them in this process as well.
So thank you for dropping those gems because I think when I first moved to Grand Rapids, I've been here for probably about 8 years. One of my goals and missions was to find my village. Because I was raised in a foster care system, and my foster dad had that village mentality. Okay. Because he was blind. 100% blind, and he had taken care of over like 50-something foster kids.
That's amazing.
Yeah, shout out to my dad, Dr. Johannes Christian. Reverend Dr. Johannes Christian. So observing him, there were many times where he leaned on his village. He was a pastor. He used to be a counselor. Like he, operated so many spaces. So when I moved here, I was like, I got to find my village because my goal isn't just to say I have a village, but to utilize them. True. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, your village ain't your village unless you activate them. So especially like with parents, and I even learned that like coming to Grand Rapids and heard a lot of name dropping. People's dropping names, and I'm like, what do they do for you? Because at the same time, for me personally, I'm like, I can't say Rebecca is my people's if I don't leverage her. That's just me personally. It ain't enough to just drop names. But going back to the point of village, like, even when we need our breaks, I'm always that person like we can take the kid for a little bit, because I understand what that feels like. So I think not even I think what you're on to is like really helping us find our time as parents, but it's okay to be transparent. Like that being said, like y'all really need to like take that in and activate that, because there's so many times where, like you said, we try to create this facade of what a parent should be and don't align that to like who we are or who we want to be. And then we're constantly switching, we're negotiating with our different person. It's a lot that happens, and we feel overwhelmed when our kids hold us to a standard of parenting that we try to create for whatever reason. So again, that Lord. Okay. So for real, because like my mind is going now, because I'm like, we've talked about in so many different groups a lot about these things, but to be able to have you, I think, add value to it from your experience, your expertise is really going to help us move forward in this. Speaking of your expertise and stuff, when you start to get into that mental health space, were you like hyper, like had this hyper expectation that the rest of your family should be more inclined to think about mental health? Because with me, with finance, I was like, everybody need to manage their money. So I'm calling brothers and sisters. Were you like that?
I think it was an expectation on accident, though.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there would be some spaces that I would dive deep into, and maybe other people wouldn't. They just didn't want to, or need to, or care to. I mean,
Yeah, that's facts.
So yeah, I think it was an expectation, but then the older I got, I was like, oh, wait, maybe that's not where people are, and that's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did family like handle that? How did they? It was like, Rebecca, get away from me. Don't be bringing that to me.
No. My family is pretty cool. Oftentimes, I mean, we can talk about deep, you know, family challenges and things like that. But then again, I'm always aware that my perspective can be different at times.
Yeah.
But no one has an expectation of me to have all the answers either.
That's good. Yeah.
But then, they hear me out. And they respect me. I haven't had the
Right.
situation where it was just like, girl, go on. But yeah, so I'm aware that my perspective may be different,
Yeah.
with certain situations and topics, but for the most part, my family has been supportive.
That's amazing. So, what are some things that you like to do to just unwind? I know you kind of mentioned some things, but what's like your go-to?
Walking. Honestly, being outside. The wintertime is so hard for me.
Yeah.
Like, this was my first winter going into the gym, and it was okay. It wasn't the
It ain't the
same.
same.
It
Yeah,
is
it ain't the
not the
same.
same. So the sunlight really does something for me, and I think everybody in the Midwest could agree to that.
Yeah.
It is a basic human right to have sun. So that's that's the thing.
Facts.
And again, doing nothing. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
not doing anything. I have days where I just
Just do
nothing
yeah. I
at all.
remember I got into a conversation with this guy. He was my mentor at the time, and he was like, "How are you practicing self-care?" And I was like, "I'm just chilling." And he was like, "So you're not going on vacations?" And for me, that's not a,
Listen.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Drop, go ahead.
So there are several things that people can call self-care, but are actually taxing. I remember I used to put like pedicures and getting my nails done and my hair done. It's like, this is self-care. No, that's self-maintenance. That takes time. That takes resources.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry. Can you tell them what it is? Can you tell them what it is?
Those items are self-maintenance, such as getting your hair done, nails done, etc. Are self-maintenance because they take time and resources. However, self-care can be, and I have a whole presentation around real self-care and what that looks
Right.
like. That can be
Yeah.
your relationships. That can be the way you're in relationship with yourself. That can be your finances.
Okay.
Are you taking care of the resources that you have? Your environment, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Your workspace, what does that look like? So, there are so many different areas where self care can come in and we can talk about it, but it's not self maintenance, if that makes sense. Self maintenance is different.
I honestly love that because again, I would say like we're fairly new. When I say we, our population is very like new to what does these things look like because we would hear these buzzwords, self care, etc. But I love how you make the distinction, self maintenance versus self care, because you're not disregarding self maintenance,
Right.
but you're like, I gotta dig a little deeper. Because you come, well, not you, but some people can come out of self maintenance and don't feel fulfilled, don't feel like, it's taxing. So for me personally, I'm like, do y'all know what it takes to schedule a vacation and then have to pay for it and all that?
And traveling with children or traveling, at
Traveling,
all,
yeah.
is a
I'm
thing.
introverted, so I'm like, I'm traveling to stay in my hotel. So I did tell him like, for me, like, I'll jump on my video game because I'm cutting my brain off to other things and I'm just like chilling.
Right, yeah.
There's no like pressure, things on mute, phone off. I'm just like relaxed. I kind of feel a little bit more recharged in that. So again, thank you for dropping that gem. So what I want to do is start to, get to the wrap up because if y'all want more gems from Rebecca, y'all gonna have to, reach out to her because she's loaded with gems. You heard she said she got a couple presentations on self-care and all that stuff. So as we're starting to wrap this up, I love my Let's Talk Money cards.
Hey,
As y'all know, yeah, we talk money. Rebecca just said that is a form of self-care. You're making sure that your finances are good. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna pull one of these cards.
Okay.
And then I'll read it and then we'll talk about it. Go on and just grab one. Alrighty. Okay. So the question is, what is the most important thing to teach young people about money? It's pretty good.
I believe it starts before money.
Okay.
When children recognize that, because oftentimes they're not using any currency in the world
Facts.
until they get a job or etc. But teaching them responsibility and what that looks like and giving back into what they're taking from. That's starting that exchange, those transactions. So it comes before money because if you don't know how to take care of your space or to, and I'm not even gonna say make up your bed because every household is different.
Right.
But whatever, your household routine is, if your children are not involved in that and it's not a collective effort, then when it comes to having money,
Yep.
the way they treat money may be very similar to the way that they treat the home and whatever that routine is. So I believe it starts with teaching them, honor and respecting your space and what you're taking from in order to have a respect for now currency. Because now you got something in your hand that you have to use. So yeah.
So yes, 100%. One that aligns to our mission to help people take ownership of their financial journey.
Okay.
So things that you own, you take care of, or you should take care of. I use this example all the time. Before I owned a home, I didn't care about grass. I used to walk in people's grass.
That's a good one.
Now that I got a home, get out my grass.
Right.
Why you walking through my?
Right.
Because now I own this.
Yeah.
That's important. And then that other piece is like developing healthy habits and behaviors because that can be applied to different spaces, like you said. So you see, Rebecca, you want to facilitate? Okay, yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk about that later. I ain't gonna recruit on here. But again, hopefully y'all have learned a lot. If you haven't, rewatch it because she dropped a lot of different gems. Learn to be vulnerable. Learn to be transparent. Learn to be honest. But also learn to have fun. I know we're living in a space and a time, whether it's political, economic, like all these, there's a lot of weight on us.
It is.
You have to create that time to have fun, to laugh. That's why I love laughing a lot. So before we end officially, Rebecca, are there any other gems you want to drop? Anything that you want our viewers to know? Anything like that? Where can they follow you? Where can they find you?
Ooh, where can they find me? So I have a tendency in a habit of taking care of myself.
Right.
Social media, I'll pop up but then I'll kind of like go away.
That's real.
So I can be found. I more so our organization can be found.
That's good.
We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. That's OURMHC.org, and it's Our Mental Health Collective. There's a lot of information there. There's some events that we have coming up for the community, so I want people to tap into that. Finding me individually, I don't know.
Just tell them good luck.
No, not like that. But I'm just kind of in this space of self-preservation right now.
Heck yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Yeah. It's a thing, but it's needed.
Yeah.
It's a part of leadership.
So if y'all need to find Rebecca, y'all gotta go through me. Okay. Y'all got.
But no, I mean, I do have a Facebook page. I do have a lot of public posts. So you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram. So
yeah. So to end, always give our guests one question to ask me. Yeah, one question.
My question for you is, from a financial standpoint,
Oh, shoot.
Yep. How do you manage your mental health when it comes to navigating finances and saving and investing and just moving dollars, because that is a very emotional space.
Yes. So you said something that, is very huge for me, but it's something I honor. I like to practice PPP, which is plan, prioritize, pay.
Okay.
I always feel like, and my dad helped me with this. I used to, growing up being a foster care, I hate it, but I get it. I was like, Dad, I'm going to the movies. He's like, what's the plan? I give him a plan. He said, what's the backup plan? Dad, come on. I'm just going to catch the bus, come back. So what if he used to always have me lay out multiple plans, right? And growing up, I used to be like, Dad, come on. But now I get it. So with my finance, I lay out a lot of plans, which helps me mentally.
Okay.
So I'll use a quick example. I got into a car accident in February. Car got totaled. Never happened to me ever in life. I'm over here. My kids and my nephew can attest. I'm like lightly freaking out, but forgetting like I've been planning for this. Because I never knew I would, this what, they talk about emergency funds, all of those things. I was like, you do those things, but I never had an emergency at that capacity. So long story short, I put a limit on I think I was more freaking out because of the accident as opposed to the financial impact of the accident.
Okay.
So I had to learn how to deal with that, because financially there are many times where, people are, going through the trauma of that and the financial piece. For me, I was like, dang, Dondrea, like you do have an emergency fund that you just been building. Now, you finally got to tap into it, and that's the purpose of it, and that's okay.
Right.
But at first I was like, this is crazy. I got to this accident. I was telling my nephew, I got to get back to work. And they like, look, slow down. You've been planning for this. So that was beyond helpful for me. The other thing that I do, I'm not even going to lie, I laugh a lot. I laugh a lot. People always, why are you smiling? Why you laugh? I'm like, kind of like, give my testimony. If y'all would understand where I came from, like I came from poverty. And I'm not trying to wear that as a badge of honor.
Right.
I'm saying like to get out of that and where I am now, to get that, to back to that point, there's a lot of things that would have to happen for me. So like from a mental health standpoint, I'm like the PPP definitely helps, and I'm helping my kids plan for that. I'm always asking them, what's the plan? So like when you talk about investing, I have a PPP for all of it. I have financial goals for all. Yeah.
That's good.
And it's all in. One of my team members was asking me the other day, like, what are your goals? Like I have it all in a spreadsheet. It has my kids' goals. We do like this yearly thing. We've been doing it for 3 years now. So I think it's really helped me. Again, you can't plan for everything,
right,
but you can plan for the unknown by having like an unknown fund. And then you like, look, I need to just utilize that fund, also known as emergency fund. I do a lot of self and personal development. I'm of the mind in any leadership space should be applied to everything that you do. So like I went through the Kellogg program recently, and the main thing I would do, oh my goodness.
I know.
Year and a half of amazing, like they did this thing called Burn Bright, which is similar to what you're saying about self-care, and they had these different areas because a lot of people's like, oh yeah, I do yoga, I get massages, and they was like, you gotta learn how to burn bright. And so they walked us through this whole thing that was dope. But the other thing is, everything that we did there, I would come back home and do it with my family.
Ooh, that's good.
Everything. Because I'm like, this is the most immediate impact that I can make. And then we'll go to job and all those other things. So for me, I've just been always seeking development. I like to do things like podcasting because I take in information and knowledge and try to apply it. Because I'm like, Dondrea, you know you don't have it figured out. But one thing that you do have figured out is connecting with people. Connect with people, feed from their wisdom, see what applies to you, and just keep that mode up. So I know that's a long way of getting to your answer.
I mean, no, that's good though.
But that's helpful. But yeah, PPP, plan, prioritize, pay.
That's good.
Have a plan, prioritize that plan, and then pay for it.
So I got another question though.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question. So PPP, that's cool, right? Yeah. But I know, I can't even say I know where a lot of people get caught up in, you know, when it comes to creating plans and finances is that emotional piece. Like, oh, I want it. Or, oh, I deserve it. Or, oh, I'm sad. Or, oh, I'm bored. And no, I'm just going to do it this last time. What do you do? And do those things even pop up for you? Like, how do you manage that to keep you from going against your plans?
I'm telling you, if your plan is done right, you will not have an excuse. What I mean by that is, you said this about mental health space, right? You got to get to know yourself, be honest with yourself. That should be reflected in your plan. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll use the most common thing. When I look at people's budgets, they don't be having weed in there. I know you smoke weed. I smelled it on you. Not you, Rebecca. I'm talking about, she said, I'm talking about, so for example, like when I'm doing financial coaching, people walk in, I'm looking at their budget. I'm like,
you missing some things.
You missing some stuff.
That's good.
If it's in your plan, you prioritize that. I'm not here to tell you not to do. I'm here to say your budget determines your lifestyle, and your income will help you pay for it.
So taking account of everything.
Everything, and that's okay. No matter what it is. I literally have a pot that's called family. Because I know my family going to call me ask for money.
That's real.
So I'm not going to be like, but when it's gone, it's gone. So I can honestly be like, look, I ain't got it in. I don't care if it's $50 in there. So I've learned to be okay with that, because before, the way I used to budget, I used to budget just for like certain expenses and not put wants in there. That's not fun. We know we're going to do our wants. That's why you said like the plan usually don't work, because people just trying to put in a facade of like, these are the things I need to pay for. No, you got those other things you want to pay for.
Taking account for.
Put that in there. Because when you total it out, and if you plan ahead, it's going to tell you, Rebecca, if you want to live this lifestyle next month, this is how much your lifestyle gonna cost. Can you afford to pay for that? And then if not, then you start to see, you plan, everything goes in there, and then you prioritize that plan. And then you pay for it. Birthdays should never catch somebody off guard.
Oh yeah,
never. You can plan for it. Yeah, but she said I got one.
I know, kind of hit me last night though. Like seriously. Okay, I got one more question.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, keep on. Yeah, this is good.
I'm not gonna name, but there's a retailer that emotionally had a lot of people in a space, right? Yeah. Me and some colleagues broke this down. Yeah. The reason why we would go to that retailer, because you felt good when you went. It gave you this sense of you deserve it. Or just go get some clothes, or go get some coffee, or go purchase this, or grab some groceries. And I was telling them, I said, there would be months where I look back and I spent well over $700, $800 in that space alone, just because I didn't have anything else to do, or because I felt like I deserved it. But since there has been a collective decision between many people to no longer utilize that space, I've realized there's some differences in my spending.
It's like, okay.
So again, that is also just an emotional connection that I made between this space really made you feel good.
Yes.
And a lot of people I don't know if we can name it. I don't know how it made you feel good. It just did. Yeah. And when we found out some of the things that were happening in that space on a deeper level, it really hurt. Yeah. And I even told somebody I kind of felt like I was going through withdrawals in a sense.
Yep.
So I'm like, where do I take my money now? What do I do now? Da-da. And I'm like, yo, wait, just save it, or you don't have to spend it. So
Yep.
yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because that's
Yep.
something that is going on right now where I don't know if a lot of people have talked about that emotional piece that came with that whole decision to say,
Yes.
yeah, maybe we won't support here anymore.
Yep. So one of the things I love to present on is the psychology of money.
Yes.
Right.
We talked about that. Didn't we?
I break down the stages of the relationship that we have to money, and it's not only money, right? It's to business. Businesses, as we know, they spend a lot of money studying us.
Yeah, they do.
What are colors that make us feel good? What are ways that they say things? Where do they position stuff? Because they're studying our behavior and psychology, but like you said, we need to study our own.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the things that definitely helps with a lot of this is financial goal setting. Because we don't talk enough about the way we should truly financially goal set. Because if we goal set good enough and intentionally, and when I say intentionally, doing who, what, when, where, why, and how, specifically focusing on that why, we start to align our budget to our financial goals, right? So you be real, create financial goals. I'll give you a quick example. One of my goals was to make 3 additional principal payments toward my mortgage this year, right? Why? Because I want to have my home paid off in 15 years. And I got to start to build the habit and behavior of putting money away to pay toward the principal, because this home is not my only home. This is for my kids. I'm trying to use this for generational wealth because I grew up not owning a home, not being in a home that was consistent, all those things, right?
Okay.
I take that mindset to different spaces, and that's a non-negotiable for me. So literally, and this is just another example. One of my friends, shout out to my friend, got me a little hooked on coffee recently.
Oh man, I just started drinking coffee too.
I'm
2
good
months
now
ago.
because I had to go back to. I'm like, that's not aligning to my plan. Yeah, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It was something because again, like you said, we're human. Things happen. It's not aligning to my plan. Look me in the face like, do you want some coffee? Nope, I'm good. I had to literally go back to my plan. Like I had to review my why and be like, Andre, you have a goal that you're trying to complete that's bigger than this coffee.
You didn't even make it at home?
I don't. I didn't even care about coffee in general.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, she's. So I wasn't gonna renegotiate it because that's still an expense. That's still time. I'm all about opportunity costs. I'm like, shoot, I don't even need. I just did it because I was trying something. You know how we are. You know, you try something like, oh, this ain't bad, and I like sugar. But I said, Dondrea, you need to cut that back because then you start to, and yeah. So long story short, I think like you said, it's doing work. Like it's taking time to step back and doing some intentional work because we deserve to. We need to. And the more we align our whys and stuff, many people who, I say this all the time, like my kids are like the biggest why that I have. I'm a knucklehead. I live up to this because of my kids. My goal is to be the last generation to start from scratch. Like everybody hear me. You see this shirt? I say I'm broke, right? But I'm budgeting resources, optimizing knowledge and experience.
Oh, I love that.
So like when people see me, they like, he's living or trying to live out what he's saying out loud.
Yeah.
Again, I'm introvert. I used to be like, I'm like, no, I don't deserve to keep all of this in. Tell the world. So then the world knows how to address me.
That's good.
Don't come to me with no foolishness. I'm not wasting my money on that. I'm just not.
That's good.
So as see, we gotta have you back
because we got some work we gotta do too, right? We've been missing each other for it's been what, a year. We connected. Life didn't happen.
It's gonna happen. But this was good. This was like our warm-up podcast.
It is.
So we'll have more content coming out. I'll make sure to include Rebecca's information in our posts and stuff. But again, thank y'all for checking out the podcast. Remember, if y'all new to this, subscribe, follow us. We'll be dropping links and stuff. And yeah, peace.